Mhm.
I don't like that dark gray there, so I'm thinking about painting it this color.
That's actually pretty nice. It goes in with the background that you have right there. I like how it says no politics.
Yeah.
I was gonna be like, wait a minute, weren't you like 3 years ago doing some other stuff? I had already been working in 2017, reading cards, getting into meditation, spirituality in a different regard, right? Growing up, we always had the same. I feel like a lot of Hispanic cultures have a lot of spirituality practices already integrated. It's just seen in a different light. So I was already kind of dabbling, and then we started shifting more into 2017. But 2021 is when everything kind of shifted for me and we launched virtually. In that time frame, I was mostly creating products, candles, bolsas poderosas. I would sell specific spell works. I would do baños en limpias, and I would sell those. Like you would go into a Botanica, pick out what you wanted, and then I would ship it out to you. It's the same thing virtually. Now, as the years went by, I shifted. We started developing more of our senses, our intuition. Reading the natal chart also really helps a lot, both in the business and self aspect of it. A lot of the work that I was supposed to be doing had to do with a lot of the darker sides of spirituality. We were brought here to help with the collective, to heal that part of it, to help people release and let go of that stuff. A lot of people don't want to look at the ugly parts or the darker parts, whether it's embarrassment or it's too hard for them or they're not ready yet. My job was to open the door and make it so that you can see like there is something in there for you. It's not all negative and dark. There's something there for you to learn or to heal, and then everything's going to shift in your life. I've had a lot of clients come to me for that. We went from crafting products to having specific things, certain candles, right? We do candle work, we'll do jars, we'll do baños because they're things I can do in bulk, prep them, have them ready, and then I can still spend time with my kids. They go to whoever they need to go to. We still do services like platicas, and we do still do spiritual coaching, but that is like very small, very limited of the doors that I have open, and only for clients that have been working with me for a long time. I've had clients work with me from the beginning. I do have newer ones, but I'm a little bit more precautious. If you're coming to me, it's not going to be a fast result. I've had clients be with me for 4 or 5 years. They transition with me, they grow with me. That's what I ultimately want. I want to build repertoire and solid relationships and not have a massive growing of stuff. The word of mouth is very important to me. That's where I get most of my clients from, is recommendations. That's where we started going, and that's where we're at right now. We're doing very exclusive services to help donate a percentage of that to immigrant communities with everything that's going on right now in the community. We're giving back in ways that we can. It's not something that I'm not very loud about the work that I do. I work in the background and making moves back there. So you'll never see me coming because I'm not very loud about it. So it's like when it hits, it's like, oh shit. But it's like I've been already working just very quietly in the background. It's the darker side of spirituality, right? We're working very silently, moving the pieces around where we need to move.
We don't need to announce all of our intentions publicly. There are some things that we should keep to ourselves,
Mhm.
whether it's blatant sabotage of someone just doesn't want you to.
Succeed in certain things. Yep. And
Yeah.
that's where we keep it. I have the same thing in my personal life. My kids, I don't post them anywhere near my spiritual page. Ojo is heavy, especially when you do specific work. I feel like it goes more for the practitioners and brujas or brujiks who are there to help heal, that get the most heaviness thrown on them because they're shifting things around, they're moving things, they're getting the progression up there. They're helping heal the collective so that everybody goes together into a higher dimension, into a brighter space. And a lot of people don't want to do that, right? Because depression is how you control people and how you control the masses. And so people who are going in there and like shining lights and be like, hey, it's not really like this. Reality is just an illusion. Everybody's like, no, 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 right? Matrix all over.
What is ojo? What is
Ojo
an
is
ojo?
it's evil eye. So basically, you have different layers depending on how often you are in public. A lot of people who work in social work or who have to be out in community a lot tend to have a little bit more than people who are working from home or they get out, but they don't really get out too much. So the evil eye is basically when you have somebody looking at you and they're like the stink eye, basically, but spiritual, right? And so eventually it starts to diminish your light, right? We have auras, we have chakras. When we get too much of it put on us, it starts to make us feel heavy and down and depressed, and then you get stuck with a bunch of emotions that aren't yours. They're from somebody else because they made an attachment. A lot of people don't know that everybody always says, watch your backs, right? Because actually, one of our portals is behind our neck. A lot of spiritual practitioners, you'll see they wear their hair down or they have that part covered because it's a portal, it's an eye, right? Ironically, I have a tattoo of an eye back there. So that way it's like I can see you seeing me. So when you get a lot of it thrown at you, you need to do a cleanse. So you can do a cleanse either with plants or with smoke or with traditional a huevo, the little egg. And then you'll be able to see who it is for the most part, get little hints and stuff, and you'll see a shift immediately when you do a limpia. You'll notice once you're in the space, it's heavy. When you leave the space, you're gonna feel super light, like the weight's been lifted off your shoulders, right? So that's, in my perspective, what the ojo is, what evil eye is.
Do you think little ones or who would be more susceptible to ojo? Is it equal opportunity? Haters
It's
gonna hate.
it's pretty much, yeah. I feel like a lot of people who are open to this type of work will feel it more than somebody who isn't. I think other people will try, it's just depression or it's just this, and you go to the doctor and they start medicating you, and then you get into a cycle. In regards to age, little ones are actually pretty well protected by their ancestors, angels, and guides up until they reach the age of 6 or 7. That's when reality. So if you are somebody who's raising kids in this spiritual realm, you still have to do your work. You still have to keep your own protection over them. But what I've noticed is that a lot of them already have their protections until we're able to do that for them. They have their own different sets, right? We have our ancestrals, which come from our lineage. It can be blood lineage or starseed lineage. They also have their own separate team, right? Whether they're reincarnating in this life, they're bringing in versions of, spirits, beings, of ancestors and guides for their own selves. So you may not even share the same type of team. Maybe like a great grandma watches over them, but they can also have their own. Evil eye is something that, so you can essentially give it to the baby. It won't affect them as much as it affects babies are still light beings. So their souls are still in two worlds. When babies stare out, they're still in this other side. They're coming down, starting to get connected into their bodies. That's why a lot of babies love to sleep because they're in this dream like area. They're trying to figure out, is this real? This feels real, but they don't really know. When you have a baby, I practice cuarentena, which is 40 days, no going out, no going nowhere, unless it's a circumstance where you have to. So for my firstborn, she was actually a preemie, so she came about 6 weeks early. So she was in the NICU. When she was out and home, finally, we practiced cuarentena. For the first 2 weeks, she was away from me. We were leaving the house to visit her, and it's hard to do what I would traditionally do when that happens. So when she finally came home, we put on her escapulario, which is a It's made typically from string or cloth, and it has like a religious icon on it. She has a Virgin Mary, and you put it over her so it protects her from the front and back. Bracelets. Um, we call these guys Ojo de Venado. It's essentially a seed, but we call it Ojo de Venado. This is something that they never leave their house without. Everybody wants to touch the baby. If you don't let them touch the baby, the saying goes that they can get ojo, which is the evil I put on there because it's like, oh, like I really wanted to grab that baby and I really wanted to touch that baby. And some people will just straight up touch the baby. They don't ask. They're just like, oh my God. And then you're just like, so that's another reason why we don't leave the house for about a little over 2 months, is because they're so sensitive and they're so, internally and spiritually, because everybody's just like, the cute little baby and I want to touch the baby. And the chunkier the baby is, the more it attracts people. That's what I've noticed. People love babies. We want to stay in the house. We want to protect the house. And then also for your own self, right? Because you went through a big shift. Now you're going through another shift spiritually, because now you're just like, a part of me is now out in the world. Like this is like a physical manifestation of something that was inside of me, and now I see it out. That was one of the things that we struggled with too, was seeing my kids be here. Because I'm like, it's different. You have them in the belly, they're moving, you're connected. And then when they're out there, you're just like, are you really my kid? Did I really give birth to you? Because everything changes and you see it, spiritually, you're also finding yourself again, right? Because now you went from being one to being two. That's how I've seen kids. They're obviously a half of you in a different sense. And you're just like, this is a part of me. And then I split. Well, now who am I? And then you're finding yourself because they left you and now you have a void. So it's not just the big plate size hole that you have in your uterus that's healing. It's also spiritually a plate size hole that you're trying to heal and find yourself in. And it takes a long time, especially when you have them back to back like I did. We're still trying to figure out where we are, but we're getting a better sense of it, of who we are and where we are at spiritually. So that way, eventually we can help other people get to the same place. This is another part of the healing and part of our soul mission. We have different ones coming in.
Yeah.
And so we have one that everybody, you're like, okay, this is like where I'm set. This is what I need to be doing. And you have other ones that pop up at various stages in your life.
Were you raised in this? And I feel like this is also in our community, right? We are, well, I'll just say what I observe. I'm not saying this applies to everyone, but we are so Catholic. And then high key, we have this whole other world that I think is so beautiful. But at the same time, it can be so taboo, yet everybody does it.
Yep. And so, yeah, we were brought up not super Catholic because I come from a non-traditional Mexican household. And I say non-traditional because it was just my mom and me. My dad passed when I was 6 months old. We still grew up with certain practices, but she was more open to the metaphysical and spirituality. When I was little, she was looking up, indigo child. She was looking up psychic kids. Like, how can you tell if my kid's this? And how can I help my kid do this? Back then, there wasn't a lot of resources. A lot of them were in English. Even English speaking people reading these books have difficulties understanding. Now imagine somebody who doesn't speak the language, who's trying to learn, who only has limited resources of stories or small little books that were able to be translated. And even the translations were sometimes off, trying to figure out how to help her kid. She was helpful in certain areas of my life. I feel like in a different world, if she had the opportunity to, I think what I'm going to do with my kids, she would have been able to do with me. And I think the cycle would have been broken with her. And I wouldn't have had to repeat certain things that she went through to heal, break the cycle. And then I can move my kids forward. But when we grew up, we did go to church. We wouldn't go to church every single Sunday because, again, non-traditional. She was always the type who was like, the church is always preaching Jesus is with you everywhere you go. So if I carry Jesus in my heart, I don't need to go to a church. I just have to connect with him here. We got a big depiction of him and everybody gets together. We're all worshiping one deity. You could do that here in your house. So that's how we grew up. There were certain areas where we went through the first communion and the whole shebang where we had to go and attend certain things. For a while, I was going pretty hard with the religion. I was like, I'm going to be a disciple. We're going to do the thing. But at the same time, certain things that I was discovering about myself were just like, maybe this isn't for me. Maybe I'm a little too eccentric to fit into this mold of being a disciple, right? Um, and so we started transitioning out of that. I think when we finally let go of all of that was probably when I was around 15 or 16. That was when there were certain things happening in my life where I was just like, my connection with Jesus is like not it. Because if there was really things happening and he was really on my side, these things would not be happening to me, right? So we left that. Our connection was skewed for a few years. It wasn't until I got divorced. My mom was acquainted with some more of the metaphysical stuff, but with hers, it was more about like dream work and stars. She was very much into like the dreams and the astrology of it. So we did know, I think we were starting to interpret dreams from maybe when I was around 8 or 9. Remember, there's like a specific book that we had. That book is so old, but we would reference it a lot. It's already got that old book weathered smell to it. Like the cover is like, plasticky. She's already dirty, but that was like our go-to book whenever we would need to interpret the dreams because it was one of the few books that was in Spanish. She had me reading in Spanish from a very young age. That was where our resources were. Now, as we get older, our resources are wider. There's a lot more people, but I'm also very careful with who it is that I'm reading and who it is that I listen to. So I only, I start reading a little bit if I'm like, yeah, I don't like the way that they're explaining things, or I don't like the way that this sounds, or it doesn't like resonate with me. We cut the author off. So we won't go back to that one to find another one, or we'll listen to recommendations from other people who are in the practice as well. Those are also really good references to have. In terms of elders, when we started back in 2017 and started like really getting into it, because we would do sobadas, which are basically like healing massages. It's not to relax, it's to release certain things that are stuck on you or held onto you. There's different ages that you can do it. There's sobadas for babies, and then there's for adults, and they all have their own specific positions that you have to do. Babies, it's a little bit more softer. It's a little bit more on their feet because there's a lot of stuff. The feet are very potent in terms of releasing and gathering things. My kids and myself, we walk around barefoot. In Hispanic households, that's like, oh my God, no, cringe. But it's like, how are you going to connect to Earth? How are you going to connect to Pachamama? Your shoes aren't going to do that for you. Meditation only gets you to a certain level. When we started doing that, I actually connected with one of my guides who's with me pretty often, and that's my great grandmother, Josefina. She passed maybe between 2012 to 2014. I know she was 102. And it's funny because 1 + 2 is 3, and those are the number sequences that we work in, and 3, 6s, and 9s. So everything is all connected. She's the one who helps guide me through certain things. If I don't understand, I have a certain question about making a fofo, which is like a spiritual bath, or making some kind of remedy or doing a cleanse. She's the one that I connect with. And when I channel, she just moves me the way I need to get moved. She's the only one that I let do that. She's the only one who's allowed access to shift my hands or to pick certain things, because that in itself, it's not possession. It's channeling. Possession is more demonic. That is like its own animal. Think about it as you're having someone come behind you and they're placing their hands over you, moving them the way they need to move. It's not like I'm letting her enter my body and then all of a sudden I am her. So that's different than letting her possess. She's the one who helped me do a lot of the sobadas. She's the one who helps me work with a lot of the plants. When she was here, Earthside, she was a partera. She also did sobadas, but mostly people came to her for pains that they would having. And it's so funny because when we're listening to the stories about her, she would just tell people to stretch and exercise. That was her healing method. She's like, no, you just need to stretch, you need to exercise. She was pretty funny. I've noticed that a lot more of modern medicine is tying back to traditional medicine, that comes from your everyday brujas. It's like they've been doing that for years. You guys are just figuring out this stuff really works. Like the mollera, which is like the fontanella. That's what
Yeah.
it's called. Yes. So that when it drops, they want you to go have your baby looked at and they will do a whole bunch of other things. And we're like, okay, well, we just blicked it back up. With my first baby, hers dropped quite often. It drops whenever they get scared, right? The loud noises that startle them, or whenever they cry a lot. That's why you shouldn't let your baby cry so much. Even when they're colicky, that's another thing, because colic is a symptom of something else, right? It's not just, oh, the baby has colic because the baby has colic. There's a reason why they do that. So she had hers drop quite often. And my mother-in-law was actually the one who showed me a couple different ways to get her fontanelle back up. And I had another lady also pick it up.
I remember that you had a red string that would go around pregnant bellies. And I remembered that I would have loved to have known you in 2015 because people loved touching my belly. They loved it.
People just love round things. They see a round thing and they're like, I have to touch it. So that is essentially like the Ojo de Venado, the red string bracelet with the evil eye on it, or just the red string. I crafted it to fit around you during different stages of your pregnancy. Visually, the most similar thing would be waist beads, used to measure weight and weight management and stuff. The red belly wrap was thin, soft, but durable as well. It had the evil eye in front of it. That was measured traditionally to about 36 to 37 inches because you wear it on top. Your babies don't sit down low where your belly button's at until, obviously they get bigger, but they're pretty high up until they're ready to drop. Then they drop everything down. The baby is pretty much upright in your belly, protecting their head and their third eye space. When they're dropped, then, you loosen up the string a little bit and then you start kind of flowing with it and see where it goes. That was to keep people and their icky energies away from you and your baby, because they can be very receptive to that even in the womb. You have more protection around you, right? Like we talked about in the beginning, they have their own angels, guides, and ancestors, and then yours come in. And their guides and ancestors are with them from their first moment that they come in and they're made from the cells. Even before there's a heartbeat, even before there's anything, when they're just a little bundle of cells, they're already there with you. What's so crazy was we had an astrology reading done by one of our mentors, Jasmine. She was like, oh, the baby's going to be coming in 2024. My partner was like, you could see his face. She was like, or maybe 2025. So he was a little bit more like, okay, because we were months away from 2024. Lo and behold, that week that we had the astrology reading, my firstborn was like, all right, I'm here, making my way down. And so she was there. So I'm like, Jasmine, you open that door wide open. And, then we became pregnant with our other baby.
Yeah.
So we had them both in 2024 and in 2025. She was just like, predicted both of them.
I remember thinking you were having twins. And then I was corrected. Like, no, it's just one. I was like, really?
Yeah.
I
So
felt like it was true.
and you know what's so funny? Andrea had actually messaged me like maybe like a month prior. She's like, are you pregnant? And I was like, no, but we're trying. And then lo and behold, here it comes. And then less than a year later, they're both born in the same month.
What has it been like for you from the moment you became a mother to hold space for other people?
So that we follow very strict protocols when it comes to that. So during pregnancy, we limited our limpias that we would do. These are like sweepings, energy clearing, revamping people up. We limited them. And whenever we would do them, they would be for clients or friends or family members. If they were clients, they've been with us for a long time. Friends, very few. We're circled tight. We would wear our wrap. We would seal both of our hands. We would get into a very specific head space and placement. And then when we would finish the limpia, we would go home and do a full baño, like completely cleanse the whole energy out. Those were very few. Now that my kids are earthside, we do them not as often as before we were pregnant. I'm in a different place. I used to do them in the living room. Now we do them outside of the house because we don't want their energies intermingling with anything. And so that doing them outside, it's not that it keeps it 100% secure because you have to keep in mind energy is free moving. It goes anywhere that it wants, but it does lessen the risk. We learned how to set up boundaries. We learned how to make things work. We learned how to protect and keep things, away from us and our kids. So when we come in and we do limpias or we do any kind of spiritual work, our boundaries are now like titanium. Before they were like sterling silver. Now they're titanium. It's not as heavy, but it's because our boundaries are now more solidified and our practice is different because now it's not just us that we're protecting and keeping safe. It's our babies. Even if you have your kid and your kid's earth side, there's still that umbilical cord that's attached energetically and spiritually speaking. They're always going to be attached to you. That's what also makes it hard to let go of parental relationships, even when they're toxic and abusive. We'll always have something in our hearts that's like, oh, but that's my parent. Right.
Were there any moments where your intuition or your spirit came through and you were like, I'm glad I listened to that feeling?
Yeah. So there was one when my baby was first born, still in the womb. That pregnancy, we were so swollen. Like when you look at me, you'd be like, oh my God, somebody get this girl a chair, a wheelchair, or something. Our ankles were huge, like the size of our calves. Our feet were so big. You know, some part of me was always like, that doesn't seem right. That doesn't feel right. Everybody's like, oh, it's because you ate so much salt. And it's like, first of all, I'm Hispanic. Seasoning goes on everything. And there's salt in the seasoning. So there's no way I'm eating a plain chicken breast. I'll limit the salt, So we started cutting down on the salt. The swelling just kept getting bigger and bigger. That night, the night before my daughter was born, I had gone to bed. My partner was sleeping in the living room because there was no space on the bed and because I would snore so loud because of the weight. Everything's pushing on you. I always felt a heaviness on my chest. I ended up getting up around 11 and I was going to the bathroom. Typically, I'm not a person who goes to the hospital unless I'm already knocking on that door and I'm like, all right, shit's getting real, right? And that's just the way that we grew up because my mom was very much, what are they going to do at the hospital? Give you a Tylenol and then send you home. That's what they're going to do. So, but with pregnancy, it's a little bit different. I was more open to it because it's not just me, it's more so the well-being for the baby. That was one of the discussions that we had, my partner and I, was if anything happens, the baby's first. What I already came, I already did what I needed to do. It's their turn now. And so he was really like, that was something that stuck with him. And he was really paranoid and anxious with that. That night, we had horrendous stomach pains. It felt like morning sickness, like that I had way back in the beginning. And I was like, this does not feel right. This does not feel okay. And so I woke him up, we had our bonus baby with us. So he has his daughter as well. And so we had to get her up and we all went to the hospital. And so that was like its whole chaotic thing. They got us checked in and everything. And they were like, they were making it seem like we were going to go home. It seemed like that. I was like, oh, I guess, like, I don't know, like, okay. And then, like, all of a sudden, like, an hour later, they're like, no, you're going to stay. You're being admitted, fully admitted, and this baby's going to come out. we're scheduling you for an emergency C-section because you developed preeclampsia. And if you had waited, so the heaviness in the chest was one of the signs that was starting to happen. Uh, Getting ready for like your body's going into shock. It's gonna hit seizure mode. And they were like, if you had had a seizure, and we had like furniture, around the bed. If I had had a seizure, I was by myself, mind you. My partner's in the next room, but he's not in the bed with me. I would have fallen off. The bed was pretty high up. I could have hit my head and I could have died. As soon as that happened, they even had padding on the hospital. Our blood pressure was like through the roof. I think it was like at 180.
Wow.
So that's super high. Even when you're pregnant, you to have it like 120s. And our regular day, like we were like that, but it was like 180. It would bounce from 180, the next day 160. So it was pretty high up there. So they had padding around the hospital bed just in case I did go into having a seizure so that I wouldn't hit my head. And baby came out and they took her away into to do like the NICU because they had to admit her into a different area. So that was pretty wild. I'll just let y'all know if you have a feeling or you're seeing something, even if it's in your dreams and you're like, that was a pretty weird dream to have, chances are, whatever it was that you were seeing, especially when it comes to the babies, it's like you're wide awake. So you're asleep, but you're wide awake. So you can see energies and entities and all of that stuff when you're in that dream space because that's where most of them kind of stay at. It was like, if you've ever seen what's a good movie, Insidious,
Mm.
where the lady goes into this space. When you're in a dream space, you can go into that. And so, for those of you who haven't seen that movie, the medium, which is the person who's channeling, goes into meditation, they get into a headspace, and then they can travel into different realms and spaces. When you're in the dream space, you can do that as well. Not to that extent, where it's like I can go to this one and I can go to this one, but you're pretty open to a lot of things because your mind isn't telling you this isn't real, this isn't real, this isn't real. Your mind doesn't know. Your mind's asleep, right? Your consciousness is asleep. The subconsciousness is kicking in and they're like, this is everything that's happening around you. If you ever have like a vision or a dream or seeing something, I would recommend going to a practitioner and just having them take a look because there's nothing wrong with having them take a look. Oh, okay. Chances are they're probably 9 times out of 10 going to find something.
Never doubt your mother's intuition.
When you're in survival mode, you forget a lot is the intuition because everybody tries to play it off as anxiety. It's you're overreacting. It's this, it's that. And then you start to question your own self, right? That's one of the things that you have to get over. That's how you become advocates for your kids. You shut off everybody else and you just listen to the little voice inside that's telling you this is what it is. This is what's happening. You're not crazy. You're not overly anxious. This is how you're going to be able to help your kids.
How does your practice intersect with parenting now?
It's not that I was reckless before, but I'm a little bit more careful with the type of energies and deities that I work with. When we got into being a mom, pregnancy, and our kids being earth sign, we did separate a little bit from there because certain deities require your attention as much as a child would require your attention. And with your kids, like if you forget something with your kid, they'll forgive you. With a deity, it's not as easily forgivable. And then you have to petition and do a lot more. It's a lot of commitments. And so being a mom brain, ADHD does not help with certain things. So, with certain deities, we did have to let go of that relationship and let them know it is for now. It is until my kids get older and they don't need me as much anymore. Um, and so we shifted and now we're working with more of our angels and our guides. And so that's where we come back into our Catholicism because now we're in that phase, redoing that process where it doesn't feel like it's so, oh, if you don't do it, it's, the biggest sin in the world, or, oh, if you don't, we're giving that a new face. And so the way that we're practicing now is very different than the way that we used to practice before. Even when we do work for other people, we still work with certain deities. but more so we're leaning on their guides and their ancestors to help. It makes it a little bit easier and energetically wise as well, because I'm not giving so much of my own self working with certain deities. And so that keeps them safe, that keeps me safe, that keeps other people safe. No intersecting or mingling energies here.
What are your go-to rituals and herbs or your tools, like especially to protect your little ones, whether it's I remember the huevo.
Mhm. Yeah. So that's a good one. That's really common. Those help a lot, especially when you go to family outings or you're out in the busy public area like the park or the carnival and stuff. Those are really good. Baños are also really good for the babies, and you can give the babies baños with the herbs. What you're basically going to do is you dilute it. You cook your herbs. We use a lot more of the flowers and stuff, right? Roses, chrysanthemum. Depending on certain plants, you want to look into them, make sure that they're okay to use. Chamomile and romero, which is rosemary. You could do them dry or fresh, boil them up like as if you're going to drink them in a tea, and take a cup of that and put it in their bath water. So it's diluted, but they still get the benefits. Babies love it. You just wrap them up nice and start pouring over them. Remember that your hands hold a lot of intention. So your hands hold a lot of healing properties that maybe you don't feel called to do for other people, but you can do it for your own kids. You can heal them, certain aches and pains, discomforts that they're having. Olive oil is really good, especially when they're having colic or digestive issues. A little bit of olive oil, massaging the feet, and then obviously the stomach area in a spiral. You're going to go clockwise to help them, relieve a lot of that. So those are a few of the things that we like to do, right? The huevo, the baños. Those are safe, kid-friendly things. Babies love massages. They may fuss a little bit, but if you're trying to give them a massage like the way you would get a massage, they're not gonna like it. So hold your baby while you're giving them the massage. Sit them on your lap if they're able to, cradle them and start rubbing their feet. The feet have a lot of immune boosting properties right there that you can release a lot of toxins from. That's why they have like the little graphs. I don't know if if you've ever been interested in that, but you can see like the different points in your feet. In a baby's foot, it's the same thing. They just shift a little bit. And so you can do a lot of healing with that. Those are some of the things that we like to do for our own kids.
How do you feel about rue?
Ruda, that one we use it, but it can be toxic if it's in high quantities. With us in our household, my mom would give me rue in tea whenever I was having really bad menstrual cramps, but she would dilute it. She wouldn't make it so heavy because it can be toxic. It can cause you more harm than good. But we do use it for limpias, though. We do use it for sweepings and stuff because it's really good at picking up a lot of heavy energies.
I love the way it smells, but yeah, the sweeping. You've been really bad when the curanderas like whooping you with the ruda.
No, literally, and they put some force behind it. It's like they're really trying to get that out of you.
To like smack you
But
around.
is that the smell of ruda is something that a lot of people like, and I liked it. The taste of it, oh my god, I dreaded it. I hated it.
What's bringing you joy these days?
So that, especially postpartum, is kind of hard. So we have our little lights and stuff, and it's mostly seeing. To be honest, I know a lot of people. We're gonna be one of those people who was like, my kids, my children. And you're like, really? Like, they're all about their kids, but it's like, yeah, and you see them with their milestones that they accomplish. My older one is talking, she's being silly, she's doing stuff to be funny. And it's like, dude, she's already a little over a year and she's already trying to be the star of the show, right? She'll do her little side eyes and look at me. And my younger one, my 3-month-old, she's giggling, actually giggling. I'm like, oh my God, my other one didn't do this. She waited a while. My other one didn't start giggling until she was like 6, 7 months. So it's crazy to see them because it's like when they're that close in age, you're seeing them. Like, oh, throwback. This is what you were like a year ago. And so, yeah, that's something that, in there are a few moments where we don't have our anxiety or like, I don't want to say it's depression, but it feels a little bit more like grief, right? Because we're letting go of old things and the way that we used to be. For me, I had my kids when I was 27. She was born when I was 28. Seeing that and going through that, I've been that person for 27 years and now I have to be somebody else. You can't just turn yourself off and on, right? Because we have like our buttons where we're like, we put on the show for other people. Like your kids seeing you pretty much be who you are. It's 24/7. There's no faking the funk with the kid. And so that becomes heavy because you're like, I can't always be smiley and laughy, but it's like, oh, I don't want them to see like serious and quiet. But it's like, that's how they learn to balance and to regulate themselves.
Mhm.
Douche. Was even faster.
How can people find you, and if they want to work with you, what is that process like?
Yeah, so we have our website, it's botanica.com. Our services there, we have it curated and cut down to accommodate our mommy life better, right? Because we're mommy 100% of the time and we're brujas 90% of the time. The other 10% I'm gonna leave for myself. But you can go there, you can request to book. I do have like hours posted there. And then Instagram, we're really active on there. I feel like a lot of my community is on there. Every once in a while, we'll do it through the website, but a lot of the times, whenever people do want to connect and they have questions, they connect me through, Instagram, or we can do emails. But Instagram, it's LMB Botanica. And so you just shoot me a DM if you have a question, or even if you're just curious. There's no question that's going to be so off-putting or ridiculous. That doesn't exist in my world because everybody has to start somewhere. If I have the answer and the resources to share with you, why would I let you feel like that's ridiculous or that's I shouldn't be asking that or I should know that, right? Because that's how you learn. That's how you teach. That's how you teach people how to fish.
Yeah.
So we are going to be doing virtually and physically. We're doing a intimate healing circle. What is going to be in this healing circle is Reiki, a limpia, and it's a meditation as well to let go and release energies and, feelings, anything that doesn't serve us, to open up new opportunities and new doorways. They're very limited. I only allow 5 people in that space. So when it's intimate, it's like intimate, right? So it's really closed off. So that's one of the things that we're going to be doing more of.
Thank you for coming on after 4 virtual years of friendship. It was really nice catching up with you and getting to know you now as a bruja mom.
Yeah, because when we met, I was still in my single, ready to mingle era. She was figuring herself out. You were the only other person with the Botanica, but you had a whole family. And I was like, oh, I'm going to get to that eventually.
Yeah. The only thing that's different now is that I realize that I don't have to divide myself so much. I can just exist as a whole.
With different interests.
Yeah.
That's what it is. Momhood is going to teach you a lot of that. That's one of my lessons that I can't wait to learn is how do I divide my energy, right? Not just me and my mental health, my energy, my headspace with 2 kids. I'm already starting to plan them out, making sure that they have the same type of toys because I don't want to hear, Mom, but why does she have this? And why do I have that? And I really wanted this one. So now everybody has the same. It's like we're raising twins. Everybody has the same type of thing.
You are raising twins, I should say.
Yeah. Yep. I'm like, well, we just got to love the way the universe and life planned this out for me.